Post Cult Magazine welcomes in the gang from the Astral Cadence, and it feels like a gang. How are you guys doing tonight?
Hey,
Cheers.
what's up?
Pretty good.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Followed the band for a very long time. Super stoked to talk about the new single, The Event, for which we helped share that video, which was very cool.
By
And
the way, thank you.
yeah, our pleasure. Our pleasure. Always happy to support the underground. That's where we started. That's where we're going to end at the end of the day. That's what we do. And you can only write so many times about what Corey Taylor thinks and drama between, bands like Eddie Vedder and Nikki Sixx and stuff like that. We have to have
Machine
actual
Gun
music.
Kelly.
Yeah, Machine Gun Kelly and his nonsense. We have to have some substance here. So this is our attempt at some more substance. Be that as it may. If you guys want to just go around and introduce yourselves before we start, what do you do, Dennis?
I play bass. Yeah, that's it.
I'm Sean. I play guitar.
I'm Bill. I play the drums and I run the backing tracks when we're playing out.
Right on, right on. There's always a very cool undercurrent of sort of soundscape stuff that happens underneath sequences and stuff. Of course, that's not to say you guys are phenomenal musicians. Like, let's not get it twisted. There's no. I know there's a big controversy right now that James LaBrie was maybe using backing tracks with Dream Theater Live
I was
recently.
just reading about that today. Yeah,
And he's really angry at people for the notion. I mean, like, if they are, it's fine. Living Color has done it. Corey is. No one would ever question, like, anybody who's a great singer. Bands have had, flow in some tracks sometimes or have a harmony out there that the other band members can't carry. I don't think there's, or like, it's the same thing with like Black Veil Brides and that infamous picture of them with a bunch of empty cabs. It just looks cool. Do you want to, when you play out and you make complex, interesting, multi-layered music, do you want to have the full sound of the recording that people are accustomed to, that they heard a million times? Or are you going to go up there and just kind of do it as a, raw? And that's okay also. There's no right or wrong. It's what's right for you and how you hear it. So, It's okay. First of all, like, we'll start here in a weird place. It's okay to have backing tracks. There's no crime against it. If you have tracks that are playing the parts for you, I'm not going to name names, but I always want to. There are bands out there that cannot play their instruments or parts, especially things they could not write themselves anyway, and they have tracks playing those parts. That is not only frowned upon, that's shitty.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, we're not kicking our feet up. We just don't have a keyboardist.
Yeah. Right. And it's hard to get a good one anyway. There's like only one Jordan Rudess. Like, it's hard to find people. So, and you guys are such a good, unit as a trio. There's no every show I see somebody is triggering something. Even in other genres you wouldn't believe. There's like a guy, I saw a punk band, sort of a very like new wavy, a hybrid band that was like new wave 80s and punk, and they were triggering a light show from foot pedals. Every member in the band had like one little lighting pedal. They were all jerry-rigged together. I was like, this is potentially unsafe, but very fun looking.
I remember there's all crazy stuff out there. I mean, before the pandemic, me and Dennis saw a band at the Kingsland, and they had their entire they had like basically all these like LED light grids set up almost like the size of the stage, and they had it all synced up to their backing tracks. And so they're playing to a click track, and they had a light show like in the box, which was super cool. That's something you couldn't, like 5-10 years ago you might be able to pull it off, but it's crazy that just local bands are doing that. That wasn't a local band, but we figured out like we could put that together.
Yeah, they were a local band, and I feel like technology in this day and age, and it's always going to revert back to current technology. It's there for the taking. If you want to implement it, you want to put it out there, it goes hand in hand with backings. They all sync. Hey, why not? Just things are out there.
Things are easier than they used to be to put together. I mean, even with backing tracks, like about 5-6 years ago, you didn't really see them. But like you said, like every genre, you go out to a show, 2-3 bands on the bill have backing tracks. You never used to see it, but it's cool because you got these bigger arrangements live that you also didn't used to hear. So I mean, I think it's cool.
Very cool. I would say also I miss the Kingsland, but also you almost need to bring your own light show there because Dennis knows the frustration. It's like Kingsland's very dark. It's cool, but it's very very moody on purpose. They need a little
I,
help
s-
with their hanging their lights.
I sometimes wish there's been a couple of times that we've played there, and it almost gets pitch black. And there are times some of our material it is very moving, and like there's like certain parts where I'm playing and I'm like, shit, what the fuck? And I'm like, oh, and so I I don't know, I somehow kind of,
So
you
it's that
know,
fun moment when the frets disappear from visibility.
but that's when you count on your ears, and even with that, it's a hit or miss. Thankfully, it was a hit for me and not a miss, and I'm like, oh, saved, and I don't look like such a dick up there, but
Oh,
it happens, it's happened where else, at Brooklyn Bazaar. It's happened at a couple of other venues
oh,
that we played outside of New York.
I miss Brooklyn Bazaar. I think I saw one of the last shows there, or one of the last
Yeah,
bunch of shows.
yeah,
Yeah, that's a shame. But let's dial it back. I've actually followed the band for a long time, but let's hear from Sean and start and sort of if you guys want to give like a little overview of how the band formed, because I think
yeah.
it's a very interesting story, and then we can take it up through today.
Yes. Well, actually, yeah, it kind of first started as kind of like a solo brainchild, and I took my ideas to a producer, and I started recording songs for a demo. And during the sessions, I met Dennis there, and then that relationship kind of got started. Dennis started playing with me, and then we had a kind of like a fill-in drummer at the time, and then we got another drummer, and then we decided to do an album, and we did an album, and that drummer ended up leaving. And the producer of that album filled in on drums. And then afterwards, we recruited Bill as our main drummer full time. And yeah, that's kind of been our story in a nutshell there.
Nice. It's drummers. It's like that Spinal Tap joke never gets old. Nothing personal, Bill.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
they just explode out of
I
nowhere.
actually just cracked out the list of Spinal Tap dead drummers at practice just this past week. That's hilarious.
Paradigm is where I kind of stepped in with you guys. I think you probably had played out by then and had a few things out, a track here or there. But Paradigm is where I jumped in. And I will say, going up to the event, which, dropped over probably late in the year and then just put the video out. I love, like, the event has my favorite melody you guys have done ever. Like, so there's a melody line
Wow.
that kind of like boomerangs back and forth, though, most of the track. And I just like obsess over it. I don't know if I'm the only person that has called this out, but like I listened to this song on repeat on my Bandcamp, and I'm just like that boom that catchy hook, man, is just crazy. It's mostly guitar, but like the groove plus that hook is insane.
That's gotta be that. Oh man, that thing's the best.
Yeah, it's like Morricone, man. It's like Good, the Bad, the Ugly. It's like in your ear forever.
Oh yeah, it's a great hook. I mean, like that was like definitely when Sean wrote it. It was like that is like we don't have like a singer, but it's like that is the chorus. We knew that like that was going to be the chorus. Like it's just such a good riff.
A good little obsessing section. I remember a couple of times in the beginning, right before the pandemic, Sean had brought the idea to the table, and in my brain, I was like, fuck, I got to do a lot of playing now. So it kind of took me to a other, like, level of like, hey, you got to be more musical at this point, not just, jiggity, 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 like bullshit. So it worked out in the end, like that song has a lot of musical, like good vocabulary, you could say, at the point of it's written.
Couple of motifs in there.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Like we said, before even Sean joined, we were talking about like, yeah, there's no keyboard player, there's no second guitarist, so it sounds like you guys vibe a lot off of each other. I don't know if you come in or Sean or you guys just come in with parts of a song written like, hey, check this out, and then the song forms. Do you jam and make songs out of the ether? How do you guys create together?
Generally, I bring in the ideas. Usually, they'll maybe just like a couple of guitar sections, and we'll jam it out, and then it'll develop into something. Or other times they'll come in with a more developed idea, and then we jam it out and develop it. And then recently, as part of our new material, we have one song that's is actually from Bill. It was pre-written. So now we got a song that's kind of just pre-written for us to kind of dive into.
Yeah, we got a couple of like Sean said, there's a couple of different ways that we've been writing stuff, and a lot of it's just like seeing what happens in the rehearsal room with some of the ideas that are brought to the table, and some of it is pretty cooked up to begin with, and we just like even when it's cooked up, like we still, like when we meet up, like we still kind of like figure out like how to put our own spin on it and make a song out of it. So yeah, it's a couple of different ways of writing things, but it's usually it's almost like solving like a puzzle. Like you have a couple of different pieces here, and you put it all together, and then you figure out at the end if you solve the puzzle or not. If you have solved it, hopefully it's a good song.
Yeah, pretty much.
Nice. It's it's interesting. There's no two. Every band is like its own unique snowflake, right? Answer is different for every band, and I'm always fascinated, especially by bands with super talented people, because they could be anything. It really could be anything. I know people hear music in everyday mundane life things, as well as just whatever comes out of your soul. Making music, you put an instrument, put two drumsticks in your hands, and then your body does a thing. This is what we're gonna play, and not my hands because I can't play drums, but like actual drummers. So really super cool. Thank you for that answer. It's a weird time. I feel like the world has caught up to progressive music, and I wanted to talk about this with you guys. It feels like there was a long time we were derided as nerds, and I don't
Yes.
know what their problem
Very
is, but
much.
like I don't know, like every band is like 2 degrees away from being a progressive music band except for country. So
Yeah.
disgust.
Yes. Every brand has a guitarist that can shred, or at least half.
Or wants to.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or
Look
wants to.
at look at Billy Sheenan. He came out of Mr. Big. Like, who the fuck thought of that? And who else can we kind of think of? Mike Mangini, who came also out of Mr. Big.
He
And
wasn't
he's
in Mr. Big. He was in Annihilator.
Annihilator. And to think like the guy could play Mike Portnoy's stuff is like, fuck, like, wow, okay. Like your caliber is like way the fuck up there. Cool,
Mangini's a monster.
Yeah, I never realized.
And a sweetheart, a really nice guy. As a guy who came in, Portnoy was his buddy, and he felt bad about taking the job. So he's got a good soul. Like he wasn't just mercenary about it. I highly recommend, by the way, any Dream Theater fans watching this, is possibly 4 on this call right now. Anybody who's a fan of Dream Theater, go back onto YouTube and watch those drum auditions from whatever year that was, 2012, 2014, whenever Portnoy bounced, probably before that.
I think it was
and
12.
Look at all the caliber of drummers that they auditioned. It's nuts who didn't get the job. It's like an all-star bunch of people.
I actually sat down a few times with Omar during work and watched a few of those with him, and I was like, wow, that's pretty cutthroat.
Yeah, my producer, that's Omar. He was probably looking for Marco Miniman to win it or somebody like that.
I believe, yeah.
Marco, Dirk Verburen. It's not nuts of the people who went out there for that. And again, props to Mangini's like 10 years in the band now, I think, just about, almost.
Yeah, it's been a while.
And then Portnoy showed up at the last Dream Theater show in New York and was like all hugging on everybody, and they gave him a shout out.
I actually was in attendance because I wanted to go see Arch Echo, who we were supposed to play with at Brighton Bar with what's his name, Tony McAlpine, and their bus broke down right before they got to Jersey, and it was a shitty outcome. But I got to see them finally. But on a Dream Theater tour, I was looking forward to playing a show with those guys. And I think that's like another talented, like super instrumental super prog band, because again, they're geeks. They have a keyboard player, and that son of a gun could fucking play things that are like, it's like on the Jordan Rudess level and probably above, not that I'm saying that he's better, but just the stuff he was wailing on was like, wow, it's just super impressive.
Right on.
Frog thing.
It's a prog thing you wouldn't understand. That would be a great shirt. Yeah, I do feel like progressive music, as great as it is, and as much as it's made my life a lot better since childhood, it is still like the redheaded stepchild of music in a way. Like it's just,
Absolutely.
to certain people, you're just always going to be a nerd, and somehow that then lowers your standing, your props, which seems weird to me, because we're talking about the best musicians to ever live, just about.
I feel like people
Sure.
who listen to music in general should just drop that guard for a couple of, well, numerous reasons, because music is moving and it's just, you either like it or you don't, you know? So I feel like if you drop your guard, you might end up liking something additional to what you already like. You know, it's like death
Definitely.
metal had, like some guys that are into death metal hate thrash, and the thrashers hate the black metal, and the black metal hates the doom metal. It's like, come the fuck on, just like each other, and you never know what beauty could come out of the unification and all of that.
Well, you always
You
got to
just don't
remember,
know.
progressive music kind of got the bad rap going back to the 70s. There's a couple of acts were particularly self-indulgent, not necessarily a bad thing, but it rubbed some of the music press back in the day the wrong way. So like
Yeah, I can
Rolling
see.
Stone magazine notoriously hates everything related to progressive music as a result of that, and it's kind of like it's stuck with the genre, even though I don't think most of those criticisms like from like the 70s really has any relevance in today's prog scene, but the stereotype definitely sticks of just a bunch of self-indulgent wankers.
Fair enough. And Rolling Stone is, of course, responsible for things like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame now, and so
Yeah.
which is much themselves criticized and derided. And while they have put in a bunch of prog bands, it's always the bands. You're right, that pass a certain muster. If Rick Wakeman wants to wear a cape, if Keith Emerson wants to throw knives, rest in peace, at his Hammond organ, whatever. If Steve Howe wants to do a 10-minute solo, or Pink Floyd wants to do 20-minute songs, who gives a shit? This is some of the
Exactly.
best music ever made. I remember going to music school in high school, and I met other people who liked the same music as I did, and I was like, I can't believe people know these records that I thought it was like a closely guarded secret to me. And no, it's a lot of people like these records, and I'm talking about like Pink Floyd, Genesis, yes. Even early Queen was very proggy,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it
super
was.
pretentious. Seven Seas of Rye. I will put that up against anything. Early Genesis with Peter Gabriel, and even the early Phil stuff. So it's wild. These are some of the most popular songs ever. And Pink Floyd, right, is like one of the top tier bands ever. It's like strange that Pink Floyd is like one of those bands and Rush. Pink Floyd is one of those bands that had like commercial success and had some critical acclaim, but they also had records that were killed and insulted and derided. So it's weird because these are also masterful writers, singers, musicians. So it's weird to me that it's still kind of like a, maybe it's a gatekeepery metal thing, Dennis. I don't know. I hope not, because as the metalhead in me is like, don't be like that. And
Same
again, I think
here.
all these other genres have borrowed. Every one of these genres, subgenres of metal, has borrowed from progressive music, which borrowed from jazz and classical also.
Oh,
Oh,
There's a
totally.
whole through
absolutely.
line of stuff, that there's a whole through line of music there. So it's just wild.
I
Yeah,
feel like when,
all these musicians are like in these like super technical metal bands that are doing all these insane gymnastics on their instruments. If you talk to these people, everyone's into like all the best musicians on whatever instrument they play, and a lot of times it's all in the progressive rock umbrella. That's where some of the best players are outside of like classical music. People. There's you can think of examples of songs where it's unbelievable what people are pulling off, especially some of the old stuff that was recorded. They were pulling stuff off and recording straight to tape, like it was live.
One take ever, like, yeah, right. And maybe nailing it on the first few takes, which is also insane because it was expensive. Studio time was astronomical back then. Record labels were shelling out for these huge expensive studios, and you literally were getting charged by the hour
and
by
then
the
and then
label and the
you
producer.
think about like with that kind of a climate, like if you're Yes and you're rolling up to play like Close to the Edge, we're gonna track the 17-minute track today on tape.
Imagine that. Out of curiosity, curiosity, just for each one of you, and we'll start maybe with Dennis on this one. What was like the first thing that inspired you to pick up an instrument?
Oh goodness. Early 90s, watching all those music videos on MTV Unplugged, and I think it was watching Eric Clapton play. And it's funny, Eric Clapton of all things, I think it was around like 90, 91 when Tears in Heaven came out. And I think that kind of like threw me like head first because of that little lick. Dun, 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 dun. And I can actually play that. And I occasionally dick around with that lick on bass. And I feel like that's what really pushed me in was I kept watching that video over and over and over. And I must have been like, I don't know, 10, 11, somewhere around there. I was going through a lot of traumatic stuff in my life. And I think that's what like kind of put me in that kind of like the hot seat. My granddad bought a guitar. He's like, here you go. And I'm like, what am I going to do with this? And I kept watching that. And then finally it just clicked. And that's what got me through. That's what got me like, you know, to start playing.
I got into rock and metal in middle school, maybe like, about 6th grade. And high school, I started taking guitar lessons. And at first, it kind of sucked because everything was just kind of very formal and I had to learn to read music and sight read and play. But once I kind of started jamming on my own and I discovered websites that had guitar tabs, the world just kind of opened up and I realized, I could just kind of play anything I wanted. And from there, it just kind of blew up because I started studying music and I started meeting other musicians and, just being inspired by them and what they were doing. And, just the level of musicianship in some cases was really enough to really, inspire me to really just kind of push forward and such. And, even now that kind of still continues with, having an ear in the prog metal scene and, other facets of music as well.
Yeah, my trip into music was kind of weird. I was a bit of a late bloomer. I didn't really even realize I liked music for a while. Like when I was growing up, like my mom listened to like a lot of, in the 80s, it would be stuff that you would hear on Light FM nowadays, like, like Billy Joel a cappella stuff. It's like the kind of stuff like in retrospect I appreciate it, but I wasn't into it as a kid. I was into like Nintendo music. I really thought the video games had like the craziest music out there. And I remember my uncle played me Tarkus by ELP, and the opening riff of it, I was like, holy crap, this sounds like video game music. I didn't know people actually did this like on instruments. So that kind of got me started getting me interested into music. And that kind of happened right at the time 90s grunge rock was breaking out. And that kind of got me into rock music. And then kind of the combination of rock music and knowing that progressive rock existed. Eventually, I discovered Dream Theater from one of my friends, and then that got me into metal. That was Dream Theater was the first band. I saw a drummer play double bass, and I was like, "Oh, you could do a lot of cool stuff with that besides just the outro of One by Metallica," which is cool. But that was like the only thing I'd ever heard with double bass. So I kind of thought it was like just like a trick thing. And I was like, I started Dream Theater. I was like, oh, you could do lots of cool stuff with double bass. I like this. And then from there, I just kind of got into learning drums and guitar, and just been rolling with it since then.
That's awesome. Coincidentally, today is Carl Palmer of ELP's birthday. So the best drummer I've ever seen live ever, like in a performance, is Carl Palmer. By the way,
Oh, he's mean.
Like my whole lifetime of watching music live and seeing like, Lenny Castro with Dave Brubeck and Metallica at the height of the height and every death metal drummer ever. So like, Carl Palmer, best drummer alive I've ever seen. His drum solo was like mind blown. But yeah, man, that's a lot of fun stuff in there. So the event is out. You alluded, Sean, to more new music you guys are working on.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. I know we're kind of as three people and myself that all grew up before the streaming age. Now in the streaming age, as we're all in together as listeners and you guys as music makers, how is it for you to put out these demanding tracks that require listeners' attention and put them out like, a single at a time? Are you guys going to do an EP next, a whole new album? What do you think is the trajectory?
We're likely looking at an album coming out. I mean, we certainly have a good enough material for an album. and we have a few new songs that's already kind of in the works, and one that could probably be released somewhat soon. But yeah, as far as the material that we have, it looks like we could be pretty much doing for an album release. And I think kind of tackling that in terms of just keeping the listener's attention, especially being instrumental. Wow. Well, okay. Okay. Especially being instrumental, I feel it's a bit tricky, because sometimes you may have a song idea and you kind of really want to stay true to the structure and the feel of that song, although your intro might be about a minute and a half and such, and then you kind of balance it off by having other songs that really just kind of like grab you, like within the first few seconds and just kind of take you. So I feel going forward, we're definitely navigating that in the songwriting process.
Nice. We'll be looking forward to that. I know it's been tough with the pandemic and everything, and everybody is pandemicked out. They're all burned out about this. You guys have been fortunate and able to play a few shows of late. And so I
Yeah.
wanted to ask how that went for you as guys who stand up in front of people breathing on you and playing music. How'd you feel? Did you feel like good to go out? And obviously, it felt good to get on stage and play your music, but like, how did the shows go for you? Did you feel strong about them?
Oh, it was
Well,
amazing playing out again. I missed it. Like we basically, the last show that we played before the pandemic was in 2020 in March, like, or February, like right before everything shut down.
February.
We played a show, and then that was it. We didn't play anything until the first show that we played at the end of last year. So it was a very long time to not be on a stage in an active band. It was the longest time since I started playing in bands that I hadn't played out. So honestly, it was amazing coming back out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'd imagine it have to be. Do you guys have anything in the works, like more gigs announced you can share or soon to announce?
Yes, we have a gig in Yonkers, New York, actually, April 30th. That's confirmed. And I believe something might be peaking around for June. I know that a lot of the time we have now, we're going to be in the studio recording and, just kind of getting things ready for a new release. But yeah, April 30th and June are two shows so far that's booked.
Yeah, we're also
Badass.
trying to get some stuff up and down the coast come July. I've been reaching out to a few bands that we've worked very close with, just to get out of the tri-state circle of things, the monotony.
Yeah,
Not that it's bad.
we had some really good times down in Baltimore, Delaware, and like Northern Virginia. There's a couple of cool bands from that whole scene. We're friends with these guys, Deathless and Emerge a Tyrant, Mikhail, awesome bands. They're from down south, which they're not that south, like Baltimore and Northern Virginia, but really cool stuff. So we definitely would love to play out with those guys again.
I mean, technically, everything south of Delaware is south if you're a New Yorker, right?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Just don't tell them that.
No. Yeah, just trying to get out of New York because, like, or the tri-state in general, because there's so many more opportunities and better and so on. It's just, I don't know. I feel like once you get out of the tri-state area, like even going up to Connecticut and Massachusetts, Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, and even west, like just the west side of the states, I just feel opportunities are better. They treat you better. They give you more variety. It's just better. And I'm not saying that here is bad. It's just it's time to break into other markets.
That is totally fair. And yeah, you stole my thunder. I was going to say, don't rule out Boston. Huge music community. Boston, New Hampshire, even Vermont has venues, and Maine in the nicer weather months, which is really only April, May, and June, but July. But then it's not. But yeah, that's where you want to don't rule those places out. It's challenging. We'll see what the landscape is like for touring for independent bands. You still like to hope that it's still a thing. I'm pleasantly surprised that New York has held on to most of its venues and not too many have totally gone under the circumstances.
Actually, just recently, I walked by the Highline Ballroom and I've played the living piss out of that place. And just the other night, I was going to work and I looked up and I'm like, why is there a for sale sign here? And I look at the door, there's like a chain, and I'm just like, there that
Yeah,
goes.
I think that place went so I don't want to say under, but in terms of a venue, stopped existing before I moved out of Brooklyn. So that's a
Oh,
bummer,
wow.
and it's a shame because I did see many a good band there, and I think there were other venues in New York, in the New York area, where the venue was good for shows, but they weren't very accommodating to heavy music. It was alien to them. So like Stage 48, I saw a couple of
Yeah.
shows there, and even the staff was like deer in the headlights, afraid of the death metal fans, which I could understand. But like, I think I saw Black Dahlia Murder Show at Stage 48, and the tension was in the air because they were like, is it going to be a riot? What's going to happen? Like they thought it was going to be the jailbreak scene in Watchmen where like, the guards ready to
That's
get punched and killed.
There's a venue in Queens called La Boom, and I remember I was a part of like this like streets New York style like punk hard rock type act, and it was the same thing. It was just security was like what's gonna happen, and I just felt so weird playing there afterwards. I was like, yeah, this is not the kind of place you want rock and metal ever.
Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't have to be that way, and I understand about stigmas and things like that, and gate, just that has to do with promoters, right? That has to do with the promoters,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
getting a comfort level like this crowd is a good crowd, and they just want to come in and get their aggression out, and they're actually only going to hurt each other and no one else probably. So don't worry about it. But I get how it is, and New York was always a tough, high rents and high demand. Hopefully, not too much pay to play anymore. I don't hear too much about that these days, but it's obviously still a thing some
Oh, it's
places.
there still.
It's
Okay.
still there. It's still there. That's another reason why I'm
Yes.
trying to take for us, like when we get offers, because I answer the majority of those emails or text messages, and it's like, hey, for X amount of dollars, you could be on this gig, and I'm just kind of like, nah.
Yeah.
I'd rather be paid that, and then in return, hey, whatever extra is made, we could divvy that down the middle. So like both sides are happy, but it never turns out that way. There's too much greed in New York, and
Right.
New York is all about, hey, let me make as much off of you, and then I could discard of you. And I feel like that's not it's not cool.
That has
Definitely a
been
tough.
the yeah,
So
it's
I
been
was
the
gonna say
case.
it's definitely been a tough place just for music in general. I mean, and you said it, like high rent is what drives it. There's very little to go around, and so like some of the venues have closed over the years, but it's like it's always the problem venues where it's like the type of place that no one wants to be at. There's a ridiculous cover. No one really wants to go see shows at it. It's not enjoyable when you're there. If you play there, it's not fun to be there. New York City's it just there over the years there's been a couple of spots where it's just like why is music got to be like this? Why can't it be like it is in other places where it's at a place people
Exactly.
want to be at? People would go out to even if there wasn't a show at. You don't really get that too often in New York City, but
You,
outside the city,
I just got to throw this out there. I enjoy playing outside of New York for a number of reasons. My number one reason, when you go to a bar, you get a buyback. Some of the venues we played here in New York, you didn't even get a buyback. We were lucky. Just when was it? Last night or the night before? I got one buyback, and that kind of caught me off guard. I was like, really? What? Huh? But in New York, you play all these places, you didn't even get that, and then you get charged out the wazoo. So it's like, whatever.
I think the
I,
buybacks were a big deal in the 80s and 90s, and then Giuliani came in and got rid of them. I just blame him for everything anyway.
Damn, he just
So
slammed the hammer
I
on
just
that.
automatically blame him with the decline of New York, even though he wants to take credit for the greatness of New York. That's not true.
I argue that.
But yeah, it's a struggle. The struggle is real, as we say.
It
And
is.
on the other hand, if you can make it there, As Sinatra said, you can make it anywhere. So
Absolutely.
maybe New York toughens you up to be able to enjoy the other places. I'm not sure. I did a very long. I'm from New York, native New Yorker. I lived in Boston for 10 years, and it's awesome despite the sports teams. And so, you know, you know how we
Damn
do.
Sox.
I still have a lot of great memories and fans and friends there, and a lot of great venues to play shows. They lost a few venues over the pandemic. Some others have opened. They just opened a new venue called Roadrunner that is apparently incredible. So it's like apparently House of Blues sized venue. So that's pretty exciting. And again, we keep hope alive. It seems like you guys have done pretty well getting out there and putting your music out there. So maybe if a good tour came along where you had the chance to buy on, do you think it would be worth it or not?
Oof, that depends. That's has to be a really good opportunity, really good tour package. Yeah, I did depend on a few factors.
We've gotten a few offers. I'll just put it out there. One time we got an offer for a Life of Agony, and it was like a ridiculous number. And I was like, the first thing that came to mind is like, yeah, Sean and Bill's they both gotta sell their asses on the corner, and they still won't even cover up the majority of it. But but the number was so high, I was just like, who in their right mind will pay that much, you know? And it was like in the five. No, it was like in the five digits. I was just like, no,
Yeah, that's not the only five-figure package that we've been offered, and it's just like the scale that we're doing business right now. It's like we'd love to be able to take an offer like that, but it's just like we can't afford to be homeless for a couple of months after we come back because we spent all our money that we didn't have trying to get onto an opening slot. But
if it could be planned correctly, this is like my 2 cents to like my educated mindset for this type of scenario. If it could be planned in an advanced way where it's like, hey, no disclosure of this, like we got it today, just a hypothetical. It's not going to happen until February next year. Cool. We have enough time to put money aside, pay it off, pay our bills, and have a little bit of spending money. So when we go on the road, hey, we didn't make any money on merch. We got to stick gas in the tank. We got to pay for a hotel for the night. I don't know, one of those variables. Then great, yes, let's do it.
Yeah,
but that's never the case. Yeah, but that's never the case. It's kind of like, hey, jump on this. It's gonna happen next month. It's like, and you get stuck with that. So it's kind of you snooze, you lose type of a scenario.
Maybe it's more endemic of the system, not about a specific band and their demands. It's probably just like, for them. I do know of certain bands I won't name that used to go on these big package tours. And personally, at this point, especially in this day and age, I don't want to see more than 4 or 5 bands on a bill on a Saturday or a Friday, let alone a weeknight. And you're seeing like 6, 8 bands and not even an early start. We're like starting at 6, 8 bands, like too many. And too many bands, just people don't have the stamina to stay, and fans don't stay because bands don't stay. In a perfect world, obviously, I would love to see you guys get a bigger opportunity. This music deserves to be heard, and I'm all for it. That's my hope for you. As we wind this down, and I want to give you back your night, so Sean can be safe and go inside, and Dennis can drink more beer. I like to end these interviews with a wild card question, and I very rarely get to talk to 3 peeps from my hometown. So, of course, the wild card question is about New York City pizza. So, if you guys want, what's your favorite pizza spot?
Oh man, I got mine.
So
you're from the Bronx, obviously. Born and raised. Pugsley's is like I swear to you, like if I have like 3 more beers right now at midnight, I would walk over there to 191 in Bathgate, well, actually Arthur Avenue, and bang out a little love pie, and I'm okay, and I have more beer. That's my spot to go to is Pugsley's. And Sal, great granddad, still makes you pizza. So it's one of those rare spots that I tell everybody, look, if you ever come to the borough, go there. You know, that's the spot. That's mine.
I can't decide. I'm thinking of the ones that I would randomly go to in the Lower East Side when I was drunk, and also this is a spot on off the Cross Bronx Expressway in the Bronx. They sell these jumbo slices for $4, and they're ridiculously big. Just yeah. So I mean, it's kind of like a toss-up.
I can answer partially for Bill because Bill has a great spot by him in Queens. It's called Danny's Pizza over
That's
by
exactly
Austin.
what I was just about to mention.
Yeah, that is the greatest pesto slice in the world. I'm sorry.
It's a great spot.
High, drunk, it's delish from top to bottom.
They got a mean pesto slice, the regular slices. They have I usually don't like sweet sauce on pizza, but they do a sweet sauce thing. It's out of control. Great spot. And then they have the fridge is always stocked with some of the best beers you can get your hands on.
Yep.
Really cool spot. And it's right on an LIR stop. Like what? How could you go wrong with that?
It's also they serve great pasta there too, and I do gotta add to that. It's one of those like family business establishments that if you want to bring the kids or the grandkids,
it's a real pizzeria too. It's not like one of those like tourist traps. I mean, there's like some really good spots in the city and like in Brooklyn, but this is like a real pizzeria. There's a difference.
There is. I tell all my friends that go to New York as tourists, if you eat the dollar pizza, I will disown you. That's not to say that I haven't eaten a lot of dollar pizza in my time, because of course, look at me. But living in California, the pizza is hot garbage. There's no good pizza here. I had one good slice. I found one good pizzeria, and I don't live even near it. It's Sacramento, and I live in San Francisco. But
I can second that, because I was out there a couple of years back, and I was like, "What the fuck did I just bite into?"
Trash, straight trash. And I'm trying to save up my shekels and have like a Joe's pizza sent to me, but they only ship the plain slices and not like my favorite, the special. But Joe's would be the one place, and I know it's becoming kind of a chain, but it still feels like I used to work in the West Village back in the day in the 80s and early 90s, and so the only Joe's pizza, there was only Bleecker and Bedford Ave. That was the only two they had. Now I think they've grown to like 10 of them, but like it's still pretty consistent all the way through. I think the last time I was at Joe's was the newer at the time Times Square place, and that was pretty good. But there's your local pizza stop is never going to be topped by the dollar pizza of frozen garbage. If you're starving and you're broke, a dollar pizza will save your life. Like a pork chop will save your life, Chris Rock. But at the same time, if you can make better choices, choose wisely, and choose your pizza wisely if you care about pizza. So this was a stimulating part of this discussion, which I am now hungry and sad that I can't get a good piece of pizza to save my life if I needed to.
Pause that thought. If you can get Table 87 out your way, they're from Brooklyn.
Okay.
They're pretty fucking spot on, and it's frozen pizza, and you get like a little pie. You get 4 slices out of it. Good 2 a.m. pizza.
All right. There is one place I always pass by. They have like a sort of like the little outdoor eating island, and they're on the island is like they're promoting the place, and it's like frozen pizzas. It's like, why would you brag about that at a bar? Like, you should have real pizza if you have an oven. Like, you shouldn't be bragging about the frozen pizza on the sign I pass by as I never go to your place. But that's just me, and I'm a snob. I ate at the same spot for like 30 straight years. 3 Boys from Little Italy on Burke Avenue. That's where I'm from, on the 2 train. And like that was the only place I ever ate a pizza most of my life. And then it was like shock to go other places. Boston actually had pretty decent Pizzeria Regina, also a chain, but still pretty decent. So what are you going to do? Pizza is life. Metal is life. Progressive metal is the best. The Astral Cadence. Sean, Bill, Dennis, thank you for hanging out with Ghost Cult and sharing your story and sharing new music with us.
So much for having us.
Keep being well, keep yourself safe, and we're looking forward to this new record and your shows.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Cheers.